Salve Latin 2 students. Good to see you guys again, and I hope you guys had a great weekend last weekend. And I hope you enjoyed the assignment I gave you yesterday on the Roman baths. I thought that was a cool kind of customs thing for us to go over. I'm going to try to post a culture assignment whenever I can, just to make things interesting for us and to keep learning some other stuff. And today I also want to go over with you our new chapter, which is chapter 34. So today I thought we'd start off with the chapter 34 vocab, and then tomorrow I'll post for you the chapter 34 notes and explaining the grammar and everything of this chapter. In the previous chapter, we learned about how to compare adjectives, positive, comparative, and superlative degrees, and that's actually kind of a big topic. So we're going to learn about some other adjectives that make their comparison irregularly this chapter. So we're going to go over that, and the vocab will be mostly adjectives, as you might expect. So I'm going to go over those with you now. It's kind of a big vocab chapter, so you want to start this nice and early. These will be words we'll be using very consistently throughout the rest of the year. So what I have here is the Quizlet for this chapter. I've actually already shared this with you guys on our Quizlet class, the one I had you join, so make sure you're part of that Quizlet class. You should be able to go and access these today to start studying for your chapter 34 vocabulary. Now, if you're looking in your vocabulary tab, what I'd like you to do is to take your vocabulary as we normally do in class and to have the columns where you put the dictionary entry and then the definition and then the derivatives. I'm going to give you at least one derivative for each of these if I can, if there is a derivative I can think of. And then, of course, you guys, with your experience, you may have some more derivatives also, okay? If you need to stop and pause for a second and get caught up, just pause the video, obviously, and you guys will be in good shape. So let's look over these adjectives today, and you guys can follow along with me. The first word is aureus, aurea, aureum. Now, for some of these, we're learning these because we're going to learn how to make their comparatives. There's something irregular. Like, for example, this one, aureus, it doesn't do its comparison regularly like we did last chapter. It'll be a little bit irregular, but I'll teach you that tomorrow when we get into the notes. But aureus means golden, is what that means, golden. What's a good derivative of aureus? There's not a ton, but there is. You might recognize that those first two letters there, AU, is the chemical symbol of gold on the periodic table. So that's where that comes from, is from the word aureus means golden, the word aurum means gold. So AU is the beginning of both of those. So that's a good little chemistry tie-in here. Now, the word cupidus, cupida, cupidum, means eager or desirous in Latin, cupidus, right? So some derivatives there would be Cupid, the god of desire and love. We know about him. And an English word we use nowadays occasionally is the word cupidity. Now, what does cupidity mean? Well, it's kind of a strong word nowadays. It doesn't just mean you want something, but usually it's got a negative connotation, where someone is kind of greedy or like overly desirous of money or other goods like that. So usually when you talk about someone being filled with cupidity or something, usually it's saying you're saying they're greedy or too wanting of things. Cupidity. That's what it means in English. Now, what about the word dexter, dextra, dextrum? You see that one next. You could tell these are adjectives because they have three genders, right? So it's pretty clear they're adjectives. You make sure that the word you use in a sentence is going to agree in gender, number, case with the word which it modifies. We'll remind you of that whenever we do some sentences and stuff this chapter. So this one means right, dexter. Not right as in correct, but right as in like the right side of something, okay? What about a good derivative here? Well, you have the word, Dexter could be a name. That's kind of a cool name. If your name is Dexter, it means the right. But also the word ambidextrous. You probably heard that word before. It means that someone who's kind of pretty proficient with both hands, or not just like right-handed or left-handed. They could use both of them very well. And the word ambo in Latin means both. So ambidextrous means you can use both your hands as good as the other, essentially. Ambidextrous. So that's a good derivative there. Difficilus, difficile. Now, why does this adjective meaning difficult look a little bit different than the first three we went over? What does this mean, difficilus, difficile? It's a third declension adjective. We've had some of those this year also. So just know if it's the neuter is an E like this, then it's a third declension adjective. Derivative from difficilus would be, of course, difficult. So probably the most common derivative here. Something's difficult. That's essentially just what it means, complex or hard to do. The next word, English, the next adjective here is dissimilus, dissimile. Another third declension adjective, you could tell by, this is the masculine feminine form, and then dissimile is the neuter form. Okay, so dissimilus, dissimile, and this means unlike. A derivative here, probably you're seeing it, would be dissimilar. Something's dissimilar, it's not like something else. The next one here is durus, dura, durum, and this is another first and second declension adjective. It is an usaum, so it's like these three up here. And something is durus, it means it's hard or harsh. Can you think of any good English derivatives here? Probably you're just thinking of some in your head as we go over these, which is great. For this one, I can think of durable. If something's kind of hard, it's durable, means you can't break it easily. Or maybe endure. If you endure something, you go through kind of some harsh times or go through something harsh. Endure is another good derivative. The next one is fidelis, fidele, and that would make it a third declension adjective. It means faithful or loyal. Can you think of a good derivative here? I can think of a few, maybe like fidelity. Fidelity means it's close to the original, it's faithful to the original. Infidelity would be the opposite of that. Infidel means someone you're accusing of having, no faith. There's a phrase of the day we learned. Do you guys remember the phrase of the day here, fidelis? Well, there is semper fidelis, which sometimes you hear semper fi, which is the motto of the Marine Corps, means always faithful. So a little phrase of the day motto tie in there. Idoneus would be suitable. Idoneus, idonia, idonium means suitable. We'll learn how to make that as a comparative pretty soon in this chapter. And this English derivative here, not a common word, probably not a word you've ever used before, but the word Idoneus is actually also an English word, except it's spelled Idoneous. There's an O in there. It's spelled a little bit differently. But the word Idoneus means basically the same thing. It means suitable. So something is Idoneous for this situation means you think it's suitable for the situation. Again, not an everyday common word, but it's a word you could see in some certain rare contexts. Next word is nobilis nobile. You see the word here, it's third declension adjective because you see the nobilis nobile, the neuter there, and it means of high birth, noble, or well known. So a derivative here would be nobility would be a term. We don't use it that much nowadays, but nobility means from high birth, or also just the word noble. The meaning of noble nowadays kind of changed. Someone could be noble nowadays just because of the way they behave and the way they treat other people. But in ancient times and medieval times and stuff, noble meant more about the family you were born from, and that's what it means in Roman times largely. The next one is a third declension adjective, par paris. This one's a little bit different because this is the genitive. Para is one of those adjectives where all three genders have the same form, similar to audax, if you remember that one, audax, audacus. So it gives us the genitive for the base, par paris. It means equal. So a derivative there would be par, like if we're on par, it means we're kind of equal. Par is used in golf sometimes to tell you the score that a certain hole should get, what would be equal to. Parity would be another word. If you and I are on parity in something, parity, it means we're kind of roughly, very similar in that parity. The next word is posterus, postera, posterum, following or next. So something that comes next, it's following you. A derivative here, if you look at it closely, would be the people who come after you, who's the next generation. Usually we call them posterity. Your posterity is your children and grandchildren, and the people that come after you. This is a good one. Propinquus is the next one here. Let me scoot it up a little bit. So propinquus is near or nearby. It's another first and second declension adjective. So near or nearby. So what's a good derivative here? Well, again, it's not an everyday word, but it's a word you might see sometimes. The word propinquity comes from this, propinquity. What does propinquity mean? It means it can be nearness and distance, like I have propinquity to you because we're near each other. Not a word we're using very much during our current situation, but it's even more common to be used when you're near someone in like blood or family relations. So propinquity would refer to, like, if you and I have propinquity, it means we think we're related to each other, like we have blood relations. Propinquity. So that's a word you might see sometime. Propior, propius is the next word here. And propior, propius means nearer. Okay, so that actually is a comparative. We'll talk about that when we get into the chapter. I'll explain that in detail. A derivative here of propius, so you're getting nearer to something, like nearer to a city or to a town. You are approaching it. So approach is a word that could come from propior. The next one is proximus, proxima, proximum, which means nearest or next, like the next city we're coming to or something. Proximus is a first and second declension adjective. The reason this looks different is because it's a comparative. I'll explain that more when we get to the notes, but it's a comparative form. Proximus, a derivative there would be like approximate, right? Getting close to something, approximate, or maybe proximity. If you're in proximity to something, it means you're pretty close to it, pretty close. The next word is sinister, sinistra, sinistrum, and this one is meaning left, like on the left side, not left over, because that's the word reliquos, but it means left, right on the left. So dexter is right, and sinister is left. Okay, well, a derivative here would be the word sinister. I know that doesn't mean left nowadays, but at one time, long time ago, sinister meant something was on the left. Nowadays, it's developed more into a word that means something that kind of forebodes something bad or evil intent or something like that. Sinister. I do notice as I look at this here that I left out a T in my base, sinistra, T-R-A. So I'll go back and add that in to the Quizlet, so that'll be corrected right after I do this. So just know that that should be sinistra and then sinistrum. Okay. The next word is waladus, walada, waladum, meaning strong, a first and second declension adjective. A derivative there would be if something is valid. You're saying there's a good reason for this. There's strong reasoning, valid. On the opposite side, if you want to say something like this does not make sense or it's not proper, there's not a strong reasoning for this, you would invalidate it. That's another good derivative here. And if someone's kind of weakened, maybe by disease or something, sometimes you call them an invalid. Not a great term, but it means it's someone who's kind of in a weakened position, the opposite of strong, invalid, right? The next one is magus, which means more or more greatly. And for this one, magus, a good derivative here would be, it's not a word you hear all the time, probably sometimes you'll hear the word is magnate. Magnate means someone in a certain industry or business, and they're kind of like one of the big ones, they're famous for it. So if someone's called an oil magnate, it means like they're one of the big people in that industry, they dominate that industry, they're one of the ones that control a lot of that industry. So magnate means like they dominate a certain industry, it comes from that. Maxime means most greatly, or especially. These last two will be used in kind of in a specific circumstance I'll tell you about when we get to it this chapter. That's why they're kind of at the end here. But maxime, a derivative there would be like maximum or maximize. You want to maximize something, take it to the highest possible degree. We'll talk more about that word in the chapter. And the last word here is nisi. Nisi means unless, if not, meaning it's used like two parts of the sentence. If this happens, this will not happen. That's why there's dots there, and then except. So it depends on the context as to which one of those are to use. This one is not, there's not a lot of good English derivatives here. The word nisi is used in legal context, but it's not a word that would ever just be used in everyday conversation, but it's got a very specific legal term that's used in certain type of legal contracts and decrees and things like that. And it'd be really hard for me to explain here in a short amount of time. But if any of your parents have legal backgrounds or lawyers or anything like that, they can probably tell you what nisi means. But I will not quiz you on what that means nowadays in legal context. Just the fact that it means except or unless. Okay, so a lot of vocab this chapter to look at, and I hope I gave you guys some good derivatives, and you can think of some of your own derivatives as well. I'm going to give you the notes tomorrow because it's already a lot of vocab to take in today, and I want to make sure you guys are keeping up with it. Today, all you want to do is go over your vocab, make sure you start learning it, look at your Quizlet, start doing practices so that you're ready for what we learn. The vocab this chapter will be crucial to understanding the actual chapter. Like some of these words are used in the parts of the lesson that we're actually going to learn tomorrow. So the sooner you can learn this vocab, if you learn it up front in your chapter, it'll pay big dividends this chapter. Okay. Remember, guys, if you need any help at all, I'd love to see you guys during my office hours. Those are every day at 10 a.m. And you can find the instructions to get to those right at the top of our class page. Those are always posted there. And you can also just message me or email me if you need any help with anything at any time, and I'll get back to you. Okay. Hope you guys are doing very well, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the chapter notes.